And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause.
Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
We're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Well, Tennessee fans didn't want to hear this. A scandal leads us off as a big-time program today. We'll talk some Tennessee football recruiting. Why is Tennessee seemingly backsliding in the Josh Heupel era? Also, stat of the day brought to you by Newbert Collision Center. We'll have coming up just a what the H. Ed Orgeron decides to attack someone for saying Roll Tide on the beach running. Don't about JoJo. That's pretty much all you need to know. That's probably what he said. Tell him about it, beach guy. All right, welcome to the program. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We're loaded up, and the Vols should be on upset alert against a pseudo-rival. We'll discuss that a little bit later. That will be Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. This day in Tennessee sports history, brought to you by Sports Treasures. So, man, we are absolutely loaded up. Let's get to today's tough question, brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. I'm going to tell you I told you so, and it may have been off the air, but this Grant Frerking thing does not surprise me at all. Grant Frerking, in case you didn't know, a former Tennessee walk-on receiver turned NIL guru, and now we find out that he was a consultant to Josh Heupel. Just how troubling is this? Caleb Calhoun, provide us some more context. He was at SEC Media Days last year, met him, spoke to him, just felt like it was all too good to be true. And you've got a guy who was supposedly a millionaire, like at the age of 19. He began a straw company at the age of 14. And he turns out to be the straw man when it comes to keeping his word. Several eviction notices, several lawsuits against him. And like I said, it turns out he was paid $30,000 to be a consultant to Josh Heupel. What more context would you like to provide, Caleb?
Yeah, Grant Frerking. And the only thing I'll say in his defense is I feel like Grant Frerking just got caught, but is no different from a lot of people who were successful in business, which is they tried to fake it till they made it. And Grant Frerking just faked it and didn't make it. And so Grant Frerking, he was a part-time consultant for Tennessee football, had been since July of 2023, while he also worked for On3, which we know is the new top sports media recruiting site out there based in Nashville. Shannon Terry has come out and said that On3 had no knowledge of Grant's relationship with Tennessee, either directly or indirectly. He also had...
And if I can add, he was specifically told not to have a direct connection with any collective or any school, which he did with Tennessee.
Exactly. He had a direct connection. Yes, he was not supposed to have any connection with any direct collective or any school, and he did with Tennessee. Remember, On3 is a huge part of the NIL era for athletes. They do NIL valuations for athletes that you could read about. They actually help streamline athletes' chances to get NIL deals. They're almost their own collective in that way. And so Grant Frerking, who left On3 on May the 27th, left amid, quote, allegations of criminal misconduct, according to a statement On3 provided. At Tennessee, his duties included advising Josh Heupel on off-field matters, consulting staff members on best practices, and representing the Vols program at public events. You're right. He was getting $7,500 every 6 months, $30,000 for the past 2 years. The final payment was on January 1st of this past year. UT spokesman Jason Baum says that Frerking has not done any recent work on campus and that his contract will not be renewed. So I guess the simplest matter of this, and there are pictures of him with Danny White and Josh Heupel. He was a former Tennessee walk-on. Grant Frerking.
There were pictures of him. I mean, there was video of him celebrating with the Vols after several games. I mean, he was easy to find on the sideline.
Right, exactly. So to simplify this, Grant Frerking was working with Tennessee while working for On3, which is a violation of On3's rules for employment. And don't forget, he's now accused of running multiple financial scams. And On3 is a direct streamline for NIL, which has been a big thing related to Tennessee over the past couple of years.
All right. Today's tough question is right now, and it's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Please hit that like and subscribe button. This could get serious.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, let's dive into this for a second. But let's begin with today's tough question. That is, should Tennessee be worried? Should Tennessee fans be worried about Josh Heupel and the Vols' involvement with Grant Frerking? What say you, Caleb Calhoun?
So I have been, I read a lot into this. I think Tennessee's connections, there is some concern. I think the biggest concern is, how did Tennessee employ this guy when he was working for On3 and knowing that was a violation of his work with On3? Did they know or did they not know? There's a lot to criticize about the vetting process of Tennessee with that in mind. However, I don't think they should be worried. I don't think any more is going to come on this. I think that I genuinely think it's just an oversight and lazy vetting by the administration. It's the same as when Dave Hart hired Donnie Tyndall and didn't realize that Donnie Tyndall was having an academic fraud investigation happening at Southern Miss right during that time.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I think there's a super reason for concern. In our super chat, you want to address Timothy's comment before I tell you why that you should be so concerned?
What we have learned today, kids, no moonlighting while working with On3. So, yeah.
What does he mean by that? What does Timothy mean by that?
Is it moonlighting? Just doing, having a secret
job? Yeah.
Side hustle?
Yeah. Okay. So listen, Grant Frerking was very involved with Josh Heupel. As we found out, he was paid $30,000 to be a consultant. He was often seen around Hendon Hooker. As a matter of fact, the two were attached at the hip, probably more because of Frerking's liking than Hooker's. But it speaks to his integrity or lack thereof that Metro Straw is accusing him of trying to rip them off, that he's getting sued by multiple people. He's getting evicted by multiple people, and On3 is disassociating themselves from him. If I'm the University of Tennessee, yes, I'm concerned. Now, you have to remember this is a different backdrop. If this is 5 years ago, before NIL, huge monstrous concern, right? He's
huge, gigantic.
He's a bag man. Simple as that. He's just a bag man. He's handing guys money. That's clearly what he's doing. And he was facilitating payments to players. It's different now because of NIL. And you can be a little loosey-goosey with some of those payment rules because these guys aren't amateur athletes anymore. But my bigger concern, if I'm Josh Heupel, and I've heard about all this, and let's be clear, I'm sure Josh Heupel knew about more of this weeks and months ago. But if I'm Josh Heupel, I'm worried about what I don't know. I'm worried about something else that's out there that Frerking may have done. So today's tough question, it is on the YouTube page. Please vote. Is what, Caleb Calhoun?
Today's tough question is, should the Tennessee Vols be concerned about the Grant Frerking situation with On3?
The answer is absolutely heck yes. And it's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. To the message board, we like your comments. Derek says, off season, shaking my head, plenty of time for people to dig up dirt on you. Listen, it's not dirt when it's Derek part of the legal system. That's public record. General Ursa says the only one that should be worried is Grant Frerking. Guys, we'll see if you're right. You may well be, but this sounds like the same responses from a fan base in the early stages of so many other scandals that I've been around. And it always starts with no need to worry. It's that guy's fault and that guy's fault. And this Jeremy Pruitt guy, surely he wasn't handing money to guys in a McDonald's bag. No, it turned out to be a Chick-fil-A bag. But the bottom line is, in the early stages of this, it sounds like it could potentially be a big scandal. Does it not, Caleb? I mean, it may dissipate, but it sounds like it.
I mean, it sounds like it could be a potentially big scandal. And let's point this out. It could be a scandal from a legal perspective, because we're talking about this guy's getting in trouble with running financial scams. He was working with On3 and he was advising Tennessee. This has Tennessee NIL written all over it, doesn't it?
Yes.
And so, I mean, there's no NCAA violations really with NIL anymore, but were there some legal violations? Who knows? I think Josh Heupel and Danny White had this former walk. It was the typical take care of a former walk-on. They were like, it was a walk-on receiver. You want to take care of a walk-on. They hired him for some consulting advisory roles. He took some money, and I don't think they did any real research. That's not it. No, I'm not. You could say that's a concerning sign that Heupel wouldn't do research on people that he's hiring. And I might listen to you on that. But I'm just trying to make the point that I don't think this is going to be as bad as we think it is for Tennessee. But if it is, if Tennessee knowingly did something illegal or was involved in anything Grant Frerking did that was illegal, you don't have to worry about the NCAA coming down at all. You have to worry about the Justice Department getting involved or the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations getting involved. Okay. And then all of a sudden, are there legal things for Josh Heupel? Are there legal things for Danny White? Does Tennessee have to clean house? You don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I doubt Josh Heupel's going to prison, guys. But at the same time, there could be questions that go far beyond NCAA enforcement.
Well, the last thing
the
NCAA doesn't have subpoena power. Okay, so Caleb's absolutely right. If the feds were to get involved, or the police or any sort of prosecution were to get involved, they have subpoena power. They can call you and say you have to tell the truth. They could theoretically call Josh Heupel and Danny White. And if that were the case, then it's an embarrassment, if nothing else, for the program, and a program that's just 5 years or so removed from the goofiest scandal that has ever happened at Tennessee under my watch. And that would be the Jeremy Pruitt Chick-fil-A thing. So, I mean, Caleb, at the very least, this is a bad look. And I don't understand. Listen, at the end of the day, guys, if you're a Tennessee booster, don't worry about this part of it. We're talking about a drop in the bucket. $30,000 is absolutely nothing. But still, why are you just throwing cash out there when you've got an athletic department worth $225 million? Do you really need outside help, Caleb?
No, I don't think you do at all. That's the crazy part, is you don't need outside help. And that's why I think this was just wanting. I don't think there was any real vetting. I think this was just wanting to take care of a walk-on. I really
sounds like now. I think it sounds like something else to me. And Derek tipped me off on this. Great post, Derek, on the message board. Grant Frerking is working harder than Tennessee staff in recruiting, is what I gather. Really sounds like this staff can't recruit for nothing. It does sound like they were.
That's not a bad point by Derek.
It sounds like they were taking the easy way out, Caleb. This guy will Yeah, I get emails all the time saying we can call and set up sales appointments for you. Because the worst part about sales is the cold calling, right? You call somebody out of left field. You say, in this case, I say, who handles your marketing? And they say, it's Bob, and Bob's on vacation, and we're really not doing anything right now. And you have to. That's the worst part about sales. Okay, so here's what I imagine Grant Frerking was like. It was like who's in charge of Bob's recruiting? Well, I'd like to speak to that person. You really don't want to get. It sounds like he was handling the cold calling. Which, if that's the case, then I've got a question along Derek's point. Is this Tennessee staff not competent in the connections they have with high school coaches, or are they not putting in the effort to have several avenues? In other words, if Nico doesn't work out, you got other guys, or if Mike Matthews doesn't work out, you got 2 or 3 other top flight receivers that you can go to. You want options in recruiting. Trust me, I've covered it for a long time. So if they're depending on a guy to handle their cold calling, that's a major red flag to me over either a lack of competence or a lack of work ethic.
Yeah, I actually would agree with you on that. And but that's, again, I guess that comes, I'm coming to your side on the issue of concern. I guess my thought of concern was, should they worry that Josh Heupel or Danny White's going to face any trouble with this? And I don't think they're going to face any trouble. But if you want to talk concern about the issue that this shows a greater level of laziness by Heupel in recruiting, I can get with you on that. I mean, look, we called, and we have called, let's just call it what it is. We've basically discussed how Josh Heupel doesn't seem to like recruiting that much. I think you and I both agree with that, right? And
I mean, who does?
I think some people do. I think Philip Fulmer loved recruiting, didn't he?
Yeah, probably. I mean, there's a rare exceptions that really love it. I get the feeling, though, in this current situation of NIL, where players have more leverage, that basically nobody likes it. I don't think that Kirby Smart, who would probably be like the next Philip Fulmer because he relies on recruiting, right?
Right.
I get the feeling that he doesn't like it under this current situation. Saban didn't like it at the point he left. A couple of comments on the message board. Do you want to finish your thought real quick?
Well, yeah, I guess where I'm leaning on this is Philip Fulmer, listen to me. Josh Heupel, this is evidence of him not liking to do. Josh Heupel doesn't want to do anything but scheme. He wants to draw up X's and O's. That's what he loves, right? He's in this because he likes doing that more than anything else. And yeah, I think he's a little lazy when it comes to other issues involved in football. You can get around that. I mean, you and I have talked about this all the time. I mean, there's some great coaches in the past that were, like, by standards of the time, were lazy recruiters, honestly. And so I think Josh, Steve Spurrier didn't like recruiting at all. He also didn't like, for those who don't know, he told Emmitt Smith, when Emmitt Smith wanted Steve Spurrier to sell him to come back for a senior year at Florida, Steve Spurrier just said, "Can you please let me know what you're going to do? Because I need to make a decision on running backs." That was literally his comment. And
I really didn't have a problem, but I want to get back to the difference between Spurrier and Heupel is that Spurrier had a ton of talent in his backyard, so he could pick. He could say that to Emmitt Smith because he went to Eric Rhett. Eric Rhett was pretty darn good. He wasn't Emmitt Smith, but he was pretty darn good. So, I mean, you were able to do those sorts of things because you're in Florida, but you can't do that at Tennessee.
No, you can't.
You can't be lazy. You can't miss, and Tennessee's missed a lot. You can't have things blow up in your face like the Nico situation, and you can't have scandals, scams, situations like this because, listen, you just don't have the in-state talent. And I think this is a really poor decision by Josh Heupel to get involved with this. I thought this at SEC Media Days last year after I visited with all parties involved. I think it now, and I thought it was going to blow up in their face eventually. As a matter of fact, Caleb, I don't know if you remember it, but I told you, I said, well, this is going to go south. I thought it at the time. And listen, the involvement with all these parties and On3 and it just reeks. It absolutely reeks. So my question is, what could go wrong? Well, here's something I'll throw out there. What if I'm just throwing it out there as a potential development? What if Tennessee funded Frerking to improve a player's on 3 NIL evaluation, so that advertisers looked at that and said, "This guy's worth more. I got to give him more money." And Frerking says, "University of Tennessee took care of you for that." Is that a violation? Hell, Caleb, I don't know in this current NCAA. I really don't, but it sure seems sketchy.
Seems very sketchy. Now, the good news for Tennessee is that the NCAA doesn't do postseason bans anymore for these type of violations. But
I don't even know what a violation is anymore.
No, I don't either. I don't either at all. But so that's the good news for Tennessee. I guess the bad news for Tennessee is they could come down hard on you for, shall we say, other issues, like they could maybe come after your athletic director, come after your head coach. There's a lot of ways they could come after you, by the way, that don't necessarily involve that may not necessarily involve bowl bans or postseason bans, and that's what Tennessee has to worry about the most.
Listen, even though the NCAA doesn't have the same teeth they used to, you still don't want them sniffing around, right?
Exactly. Totally agree. You don't.
General Ursa says Heupel seems content on getting average talent and coaching it up. Yeah, and we're going to dive into that. Is the story up on offthehooksports.com?
Yeah, story's up on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, call them up in which I punched some numbers as far as the University of Tennessee as they compare to their rivals. In particular, I picked Alabama and Georgia because they've been at a championship level, and Tennessee doesn't. They don't fare real well when you compare them to others. So let's go ahead and dig into that now, Caleb. We're doing that right now.
We can do that right now. I was going to do that later, but yeah, we can do that right now on the show.
Okay, let's do it a little bit later. Okay. Set us up for 4 Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. By the way, it is Father's Day, so I'll tell you all about the deals that they have for Father's Day here in just a moment. But first, Caleb, 4 Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studios. 2 locations, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer, and they're fantastic. The customer service is through the roof. Absolutely love my buying experience. So set us up, Caleb, for what's going on in 4 Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln.
Yeah, so in this situation, we're going to ask, will 2025 prove Josh Heupel's ability to evaluate talent out of high school? And I'm going to say yes, because this is going to be, and we're going to break them down offensively. Tennessee's found some great players on defense, and they've recruited them. James Pierce is the most prominent one. But I think most of the recruiting on defense comes from Tim Banks, Rodney Garner, Willie Martinez. I don't think Heupel's involved. Heupel's involved in recruiting on offense. This is likely to be the first year since he took over at Tennessee that a majority of the offensive snaps are taken by players he signed directly out of high school, not via the transfer portal.
I think it's a watershed year. I really do. And if the University of Tennessee doesn't prove to have talent that's at least comparable to Georgia and Alabama, and I don't think they will, then that's troubling. How do they stack up to Kentucky, Florida? Well, they should already be beyond that. And I don't think that they are. So let's go ahead and get to 4 Downs. It's brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. And man, this Saturday only, surprise dad with a new ride that roars. Experience top models at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln and celebrate Father's Day in horsepower style. Don't miss your chance to make this Father's Day unforgettable. There are amazing deals. If we can go ahead and share those, I'd greatly appreciate it. And Ted Russell Lincoln, join them in Knoxville where luxury meets comfort. Discover your next new ride. Amazing dads are in your lives. They deserve an awesome ride. So let's go ahead and get to it. 4 Downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
We'll do it, Coop.
Coop here. First down.
All right. First down is this. 2 of 3 likely starting wide receivers were signed by Heupel out of high school. Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley.
Yes.
Tennessee going to have better receiver play than they had this year? than last year? They should, Caleb. But part of that's because Brew McCoy wasn't the same player as he was 2 years ago.
True, but even if Brew McCoy was, Heupel didn't sign Brew out of high school.
True.
And so this is what I'm talking about. Heupel signed these two out of high school. And so 2 of 3 likely starting wide receivers signed by Heupel out of high school is the big deal here. Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley. And by the way, Chris Brazzell is going to be at the other side. Heupel signed him, and he signed Brazzell out of Tulane as a transfer. So Matthews and Staley together, that's going to be a big deal. This is a really big test for Heupel if those two work out. And again, there's rumors of Staley alternating time with Boo Carter, but Boo Carter, he also signed out of high school.
Here's another factor to consider.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Both running backs signed out of high school, Peyton Lewis and Deshaun Bishop. I'll go ahead and say this from a talent perspective. Love me some Peyton Lewis. And again, we're not talking about production last year by Bishop, who I think surprised a lot of us, me and Caleb included, as productive as he was. And they may have gotten an overachiever. And certainly, I think that Josh Heupel deserves credit for that. But the bottom line is, if you're not uber talented, then you've got an issue. And I think Peyton Lewis is potentially uber talented, but Caleb, I'm not so sure that Deshaun Bishop is. Is this an adequate pair of running backs heading into Josh Heupel's 5th season?
Peyton Lewis and Deshaun Bishop together is it should be, because Deshaun Bishop should be a solid backup, and Peyton Lewis is supposed to be an elite player. He signed out as an elite running back. Now, to Josh Heupel's credit, Dylan Sampson was an All-American last year. He did sign Dylan Sampson out of high school. So there's not as much of a change at running back this year in terms of the offensive weapons. And Josh Heupel deserves a lot of praise for that, okay? And because he found Dylan Sampson when no one else did. Well, not no one, but Dylan Sampson was a 3-star. But Peyton Lewis was a 4-star and more highly touted. So this is another part where, again, both running backs out of high school, one a walk-on in Bishop. This will really test Heupel's evaluating skills.
All right. Along those lines, it kind of harkens back to recruiting a little bit. What did Timothy have to say?
You know how ignorant people say we are a 3-star U, but those 3 stars in JUCO, D2, and D3 still get drafted in the NFL. I mean, Timothy,
I'll still take my chances with 5 5-stars, and you can have your 5 3-stars.
I get your point on that. But it's a little bit weird with Tennessee history in the last 25 years. They've missed on more 5-stars than they have 3-stars, I feel like.
Okay. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. As we continue 4 Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We appreciate that. If you haven't done that yet, click on the like button. Anybody that throws in a super chat, that goes to Quincy Calhoun's college fund. You're not going to believe 3rd and 4th down. And it's brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. You'll absolutely love those guys.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Mays here. 3rd down.
Oh, did you hear Coop? Were you able to hear Coop?
Yeah, I heard him somewhat. Play him again.
Center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
Thank you, Coop. All right, 3rd down, Caleb, is this. And that is at least 2 of 5 likely starting offensive linemen signed out of high school. David Sanders would be 1. Interior offensive lineman Max Anderson, William Satterwhite, or Sham Umarov would be the other, would be Heupel guys. So, listen, we all like to talk about the skill position players, but if Tennessee can't recruit the big uglies along with Georgia and Alabama that have an advantage because of in-state talent, they're not going to compete with those teams. I will say this. It's a credit to Heupel's coaching that they beat Alabama twice because they're not as talented. I think we would agree on that. But your thoughts on the offensive line recruiting to this point by Heupel? I would say that best case scenario, we think Sanders is going to be really good. But do I like depending on a freshman at tackle? Not really. One interior offensive lineman, I've said that I'm really high on William Satterwhite to replace Cooper Mays. I think Satterwhite is a lot like Mays, and he'll be good. Max Anderson, not high on. Shamumarov, sort of high on. That's not a glowing endorsement, Caleb.
No, and now let's bring this up. Heupel has yet to have an offensive lineman that he signed out of high school start for him. And he's going to have at least 2 this year. So, I mean, a dramatic change because David Sanders is already locked in at right tackle. I can just tell you right now, that's why Larry Johnson entered the transfer portal. Okay, David Sanders committed a certain amount of NIL money, and you're going to start a guy that you paid that much NIL money to. So David Sanders is locked in at right tackle. Lance Hurd's at left tackle. He's a transfer. On the interior, Sam Pendleton and Wendell Moe could both start. They're both transfers, but that still leaves one person he signed out of high school that would have to start. And that means at least 2, Sanders and one of those other guys, will be the starter. And you're talking, like I said, Max Anderson, William Satterwhite, or Sham Umarov. By the way, could be 3 to 4 that he signed out of high school that become starters this year. We don't know how good Sam Pendleton and Wendell Moe are going to be for Tennessee. You told me earlier in the year that you think Wendell Moe is just a body.
Yep. Okay, so let me ask you this. I'll talk about a couple of the transfers. Do you believe a program in general, perhaps Tennessee, perhaps not, can be primarily transfer portal based and win a national championship?
I do. I'm going to save that. I'm going to save my take on that for when we discuss your takes on Josh Heupel's recruiting.
Okay. Because I'll go ahead and tell you I don't.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right. Thanks, Coop. Everybody on the second team will be signed out of high school by Heupel. Here are some names to be mindful of: Ethan Davis, Jake Merklinger, who I guess will be second team. We'll see. And Travis Smith Jr., Radarius Jackson at wide receiver. Now, I don't think Ethan Davis is a second team player. He may end up being a second team player depending on what happens at tight end health. But I don't think he feels like a second teamer. I think he's going to be really good. Travis Smith Jr. needs to pan out and be really good. But when you look at the second team, what do you make of what Heupel has brought in?
Well, this gets to my point on the whole, a majority of the offense will be out of high school, because here's why. From what I just named, Dave, when I just named you the starters of everybody, I broke down at least 2 offensive linemen, 2 of the 3 wide receivers, and the starting running back, right? That's 5 of 11 starters are already players he signed out of high school, right?
Yes.
That's a minimum. A minimum of 5 of 11 starters are players he signed out of high school. If everybody on the second team is also players he signed out of high school, well, then you know for a fact that there's a 100% chance that the majority of offensive snaps is going to be taken by players he signed out of high school, because 5 of 11, but then you're going 16 of 22 for a 2-deep depth chart in that situation. And at that point, you're going to see way more offensive snaps taken. I named all these guys to say Travis Smith or Darius Jackson. One of those guys is going to be the first receiver out off the list, because Brazel, Staley, and Matthews are the starters. Again, I brought up Boo Carter in the slot earlier. Again, Boo Carter was signed out of high school too. So one of the wideouts will be Travis Smith or Darius Jackson. It won't be Amari Jefferson, by the way, for those asking, because Amari Jefferson needs a year to recover from an injury. So he's not playing this year. He's going to be a starter next year.
Great.
So
the transfer from Alabama.
From Alabama, exactly. On the offensive line, I mentioned Satterwhite, Anderson, and who's the third? Sham Umarov. I'm telling you guys right now, Satterwhite, Anderson, Sham Umarov. Just would like to point out that while only one of them might start, the other 2 will definitely be on the second team, and the offensive line rotation has to go at least 7 deep of a regular rotation.
Timothy's super chat.
Then fire the coach, because 5 stars on a pro-style type offensive scheme is not the veer and shoot that doesn't translate to the NFL. I mean, Timothy, not everybody doesn't want that.
Well, I think that's the next evolution of college football. I think it is showing prospects that you can prepare them for the NFL, because I think the money is not going to be completely level. You pointed that out. We debated that the other day. But I do think it's going to be leveled off somewhat. Against all super chats, go to Quincy Calhoun, who just turned 1 year old. Is college fun. So Caleb has promised not to gamble it away. A couple of more comments from the message board. We have 5 stars on both sides of the ball. I'm happy with that. Matt said, and I think Rusty nailed this. When it comes to winning a championship with portal guys, no, you can't do that, Rusty says. Portal guys collectively want too much money. I completely agree. And Matt goes on to say, need a good mix of transfer portal and high school recruiting. Need both to be successful. Listen, every guy you get's not going to be Brew McCoy. Can we agree that Brew McCoy came in and was an incredible leader and was just an incredibly talented player before the injury? That's best case scenario. That's not going to happen with most transfer portal guys.
No, it's not, but I'm still going to debate you guys on this. Again, I'm saving my debate on this, but I'm going to tell you why you can do it with a good mix of transfer portal guys.
Okay. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Your Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, with Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. A couple of comments from the message board are making fun of my chair. So can you go ahead and share that, Caleb, if you don't mind, and read that comment?
Travis Case. Why does it feel like I'm listening to a Roosevelt fireside chat because of Dave's pawpaw chair? I got a lot of interesting history behind the Roosevelt fireside chats.
Let's not talk about it. All right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Dave doesn't like to learn.
It's for my lumbar. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and dive into this day in Tennessee sports history, and it's brought to you by Sports Treasures. Over 5 million sports treasures right there on Broadway. You're absolutely going to love Sports Treasures. Follow them on Facebook. The link is right down below.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, this day in Tennessee sports history, and then I'm going to go back to the message boards. Some great comments that harken back to our earlier topic, and that is, in my opinion, Josh Heupel is relying too much on the transfer portal. Go, Caleb.
On this day, 4 years ago, Tennessee beat LSU 15-6 to advance to its first College World Series in 16 years.
Wow. Good one. And that was a watershed moment because it resulted in four more super regionals.
But two more College World Series and a national championship. And it's yeah. So it's I still think it is relevant though, because it really shows how far they've come.
Couple of comments as we open it up to you. Nathaniel says, what I don't like is the idea of us spending bank on 3 and 4 stars that uses safety schools and transfer later before starting. Matt says transfer portal is extremely important to fill holes and depth. Blind Squirrel Sports agrees with Matt. Matt also says equally as important as keeping the players that we have at the end of the season. We lost too many players last year. You mentioned Larry Johnson. You think because David Sanders is playing that's why Johnson left. And I tend to agree with you, although the logic in that is bizarre to me. We're talking about a freshman. But anyway, Caleb, if you had to rank them, Nico's obviously number one, the most troublesome player that Tennessee lost to the transfer portal. Who's 2 and 3?
That Tennessee lost to the transfer portal?
Yes.
Ooh.
Maybe a topic for Monday?
Yeah, maybe Squirrel White could be one. I would say maybe Squirrel White, but I think that had to do with Boo Carter's demands to get more offensive touches. So,
golly, you're basically talking about that. I mean, Caleb, if you're right, and I'm not willing to say you are, I hope you're not. If Squirrel White left because Boo Carter demanded more playing time, that's so troubling because you shouldn't bow to the demands of anybody. If Larry Johnson left because David Sanders got paid and you have to pay a player who got paid just like in the pros, what do we do in college football? I don't want to sound like the old fuddy-duddy.
You already sound like the old fuddy-duddy. That's how it is. It's the pros. This was always the point. Like, why did we want to... Who was benefiting with the pretend that this was an amateur sport looking out for the amateur well-being of athletes? Overall, I do want to look out for the amateur well-being of athletes. That's fine. I'm totally fine with that. But let's not pretend that this was not a gigantic business from the start. If it's about amateurism, coaches shouldn't be getting $10 million.
Yep, fair enough. Nathaniel points out this. I think Squirrel needed the bag since he likely won't go to the NFL. I tend to think that's the reason more than anything. I think Florida State said, we'll pay you good money, and that's what he did. All right. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Tennessee football recruiting is not good enough. It's not. And it's not even really close. If we can drop my column in the message board, I would appreciate that, Caleb. Let's look at a couple of different things. I went back and ran the numbers, and I compared Tennessee football recruiting to 2 of its rivals, Georgia and Alabama. Why did I pick those 2? Because I think we would both agree they're competing at a championship level, or at least will in Alabama's case. Now, when you look at the recruiting since the 2022 signing class, and I picked that year because that was Heupel's first full year. I didn't factor in 2021. That would have been unfair. So the last 4 signing classes, the Vols have averaged 13th best in the nation, while Alabama and Georgia have both averaged second best in the country. Guys, there's a significant difference. You're talking to somebody who's covered recruiting for like 20 years. There's a huge difference. Now, let's continue to look at those numbers. I think it's obvious the talent gap has been way different between Georgia and Tennessee. I will credit Heupel's coaching with the fact that they've beaten Alabama twice in that period. So I'm not being a negative Nancy here. But here's the troublesome part, and probably why Tennessee lost to Arkansas. And had they recruited better, they would have had better offensive tackle play. Tennessee has been barely better than middle of the pack in the SEC in recruiting, averaging 7th best in the SEC during Heupel's tenure compared to other programs. Does that number surprise you, Caleb?
It actually doesn't, because I mean, but I will say the only reason it doesn't is because I've covered recruiting for Tennessee so extensively the last 4 years. I knew that they were being middle of the pack in the SEC for the last 4 years.
It was a little. I just going into it thought they would be around 4 or 5. That's not been the case. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, that opens up Tennessee for potential upsets when they don't play their best, such as Arkansas. Philip Fulmer, how many times did he go against a team and his teams were just more talented and they didn't play their best game on that particular day, but they ended up winning? How many times did that happen? The answer is a lot.
More than it should have, honestly, to be fair. I mean, if we're being, I mean, the one that stands out to me was my favorite one of those that stands out to me is the 2003 South Carolina game where Tennessee had to beat them in overtime. And that was where Dustin Colquitt just like punted Tennessee to victory, basically, that day, where you knew Tennessee was better the whole time. So, I mean, I'm with you, but you are right. That leads to the Arkansas loss. But Dave, I have to push back. Tennessee pulled that off last year, too. They were significantly more talented than Florida. They played like you-know-what against Florida, but still won in overtime. And also, Tennessee...
Well, you should have had a better backup to Cooper Mays than you had.
No, I'm talking... No, it's 2 years ago. I'm talking about last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they lost to Florida 2 years ago. But also, it ain't like Tennessee didn't have those losses under Philip Fulmer. I mean, they had plenty of losses that were to significantly worse teams than them on the talent level.
Hey, I'm not going to argue they didn't get out schemed at times. Okay, I'm with you there, but
I don't even think they got out schemed at times. I think they just lost to Notre Dame at home when Notre Dame was significantly worse and Ty Willingham was not about to out scheme anybody.
Well, they lost to Notre Dame on the road in the screen game.
That was the Charlie. Yeah, different team.
I mean, right, but I mean, yeah, I could pick out plenty of times when they got out schemed or they lacked motivation. Which was a head scratcher. Timothy on the super chat, which goes to Quincy Calhoun's college fund, says our recruiting is Big 12 type conference. Ouch. You're right. Adam says this. Aside from the money spent, we haven't won enough to expect top 5 recruiting. Now that we have been a playoff team as well as 2022, we should be able to expect top 10 classes. Adam, top 10's barely good enough, and I'm not sure it is. Man, I don't know what. It's just, to me, you've got to be top 5 if you're going to win championships. Now, I will say this. Notre Dame would be the exception. Over these last 4 years, Notre Dame has coached their guys up, or they've done a better job of talent evaluation, or whatever. Or the television networks gave them an easy path. But nevertheless, they've averaged 10th in the nation in recruiting. So that's not great. That's not elite. And contradicts what I just said. However, I'll say this, Caleb. When they showed up against Ohio State, they looked like they didn't belong. Agreed?
I can give you that. They did look like they didn't belong when they showed up against Ohio State. But you could also point out nobody looked like they belonged against Ohio State. And I think you and I would actually both agree that when they faced Georgia, or when Notre Dame faced Georgia, Georgia's on par with Ohio State talent-wise, and Notre Dame was able to beat them in that game. Now, yes, Georgia lost their quarterback. They were playing with Gunnar Stockton, not Carson Beck. But can we also not agree that Georgia had significantly more talent all over the field at the same time?
Yeah, I can roll with that. A number that I want to share with you, which I think you'll find troubling, is where Tennessee has ranked in recruiting over the past couple of years compared to Josh Heupel's first 2 years. But I'll stick with it. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Josh Heupel's recruiting hasn't been good enough.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right. Appreciate that. Be sure to hit that like button. A couple of notes from The message board, the top 5 in recruiting are in a different league these days. I agree. They always have been. Listen, there's a difference between 5, like consistently being in the top 5, consistently being in the top 10, and not. Those are kind of the 3 different levels. You want to say top 25 and not, I can roll with you there. But you just can't have any misses. You can't have misses at offensive tackle. You can't do that. Another comment from the message board, Derek says top 10 with Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Texas, LSU, Ohio State, Auburn, and Oregon ahead of us in recruiting. Right. And in this college football playoff world, it's not just about rallying up and beating Georgia to win the East. It's about advancing in the college football playoff. That's how you're going to be judged. And Caleb, you pointed out that a conference championship doesn't carry the same weight it used to. I don't go as far as you as that, but I do go a little bit down that road. And quite frankly, you are recruiting against Ohio State and Oregon. And right now you're losing.
Okay, so yes, but there are other ways, there are workarounds to not reach their same level of talent. And this is where I've been at from the start. One, Tennessee has had great success in the portal to a certain degree. Now, they did not find Hendon Hooker in the portal. The previous coaching staff did. Jeremy Pruitt did. They went after Joe Milton. That was a miss. I can see that. But they did find Brew McCoy in the portal.
I don't have the problem with Joe Milton as a backup.
Okay, fair enough.
Actually, a really good backup to have his uber talented backup. But the fact you played him over Hooker, that's a story.
Now, what about last year? They found Miles Kitselman in the portal. He became an all-SEC tight end. They found Jermon McCoy in the portal. He became an all-American cornerback. They've been very meticulous and smart with their portal additions. They found Lance Hurd in the portal. He looked horrible in the first half of the season, but Dave, he kind of started to look like an all-SEC tackle in the second half of the season, didn't he?
Okay, but my point is this. Yes, you supplement in the portal, but do you have to depend on a guy to start the season in the portal? A guy that couldn't start at another SEC school. A guy told me that's very, very ingrained in Tennessee's football program. He said, you know what I don't understand is why are we taking these guys that can't start at other SEC schools?
Because
when he was talking about Hurd specifically.
Okay. What did I say about Tennessee basketball this past year that you broke with me on and I ended up being proven right? Sorry.
Said Jerry Green.
I said you can't replace Dalton Connect, but you can recreate him in the aggregate, right?
Okay. I disagreed with that at the time.
And Tennessee went just as far this past year, despite 2 key season-ending injuries and a key mid-season transfer that they didn't account for as they did with Dalton Connect. What happened? What happens in football? Lance Hurd wasn't good enough to start at left tackle at LSU because he was competing with maybe the best left tackle in the nation at that time. Okay. So Lance Hurd, maybe he's not the best left tackle in the nation.
Wait. He's the 3rd best tackle on LSU's roster because you move him to right tackle to not lose him if he's the 2nd best.
Lance Hurd actually demanded, he wanted to specifically play left tackle. That's why Tennessee took him.
I'm sorry. If you can't sell a guy to move to right tackle and stay at your home in Baton Rouge, and you maybe have to throw him some more cash to prevent him from transferring, I don't buy that.
Okay, but either way, fine. He's the 3rd best, but the 3rd best tackle at LSU, Dave, I would still say is a top 20 tackle in the nation. And so, and a top, like, again, you're taking a guy that he may not be. Let me ask you this. Would you rather have the best tackle in the nation or 5 offensive linemen who are all top 20, top 25 at their position?
Boy, I would, I mean, I want both when it comes
but it's an either or. Do you want, this is the thing, if you have a team of good players, but maybe not great, if you do it enough in the conglomerate, you can win. I'll give you a great example. Here's one that no one talks about. You want to know the most underrated Super Bowl win in the history of the NFL?
Underrated Super Bowl win.
There's two. The 2 most underrated storyline, the 2 teams that are the most underrated storylines of how they won the Super Bowl. There's 2 specifically.
No idea with what you're driving at here.
Okay, the Saints in 2009 and the Seahawks in 2013. You want to know what's so interesting about those 2 teams, Dave?
Yes, sure.
They took cast-offs in free agency in both instances and completely built their team around cast-offs. And their philosophy was, particularly the Seahawks, here's what the Seahawks said. You know how when free agency starts in the NFL, the first day, a bunch of teams jump and throw a bunch of money at players?
Yes.
Like the Seahawks said, we're going to wait 2 days. We're going to wait 2 days. Yeah, all the best players will be signed, but then the good players will all be desperate, and we'll get a bunch of good players for cheap. So I could get 2 great players or 5 good players. And the Seahawks took that model. The Saints did the same model in 2009. The Saints,
it's a monster reach, Caleb.
No,
monster reach.
Rocky was a cast-off from the Giants. Drew Brees was a cast-off from the Chargers.
Okay.
And
okay, go ahead. Wrap it up. I'm confused. This is
what I'm saying is you're sitting there saying because someone's a cast-off, they can't be great for you. Drew Brees was a cast-off. Drew Brees was a cast-off from the Chargers, and he's a Hall of Famer now.
Okay, well, Drew Brees was a cast-off because of injury. But anyway, Dylan says when you can't recruit well, you supplement with the portal. Look at Ole Miss. They're usually middle of the pack in the SEC recruiting-wise, but stack together top transfers and end up competing. What are we talking about? Are we talking about competing, or are we talking about winning the championship? Because those are 2 different things.
I think you can win a championship building off the portal if you do it smartly. If you don't go all in for like the high
word.
Huh?
Is smartly a word?
Smartly is a word.
Okay.
If you don't, here's what you can't do. Don't go all in for because let's call it what it is. Reason I brought up what I brought up. The portal's like the free agent model in college football, right? If you build off the portal, you're like an NFL team that builds around the free agent model, right?
Right.
You're suggesting that NFL teams can't win a Super Bowl when they build on the free agent model. And I'm saying it's proven they can. So why can't you do it in college?
You can't. I mean, because these kids are immature and they realize they've got more power and it's different. Listen to the model that you should use. Okay. You go get a transfer portal guy like Reggie White. When Reggie White went to the Green Bay Packers, he transformed them into an elite team because he was able to wreck the front of the defense, the offensive line. And let's just say, for instance, under that scenario, you go get Lance Hurd from LSU after he started the year and proved he's an all-SEC player. I'm fine with that. Throw a lot of cash at that kid, and he comes in and he dominates. Not come over here, grow as a freshman, fingers crossed things work out. And the bottom line is they didn't for half the season. So your notion of building with a transfer portal, maybe it'll work out this year. Hurd has a year under his belt. Joey Aguilar has experience. Maybe Tennessee will be fantastic. But it didn't work out last year, and it didn't work out for Ole Miss, guys. Who really thought that Ole Miss was going to win a championship? And you're talking about somebody that thinks that Jackson Dart was an incredibly underrated player last year. I love Jackson Dart. Second to only actually Shedeur Sanders. I disagree with all the talent evaluations headed into the NFL. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, you're not going to win a championship based on the transfer portal. A supplement player or 2, Brew McCoy's a great example. Okay, he came in and he was good to go. Good to play, ready to go. But if you're depending, there's a difference between depending on 2 or 3 transfer portal guys and 5 or 6. And it feels like Tennessee has been relying on 5 or 6 since the invention of the transfer portal.
Okay, but let's ask this question. Let's put it this way. Would you rather go get Reggie White, like you just said, in the transfer portal? Go get Reggie White in the transfer portal and spend a bunch of money on Reggie White in the transfer portal? Or would you rather, instead of just getting Reggie White, would you rather get Brandon Browner, Percy Harvin, Brandon Browner, Marshawn Lynch? No, Brandon Browner, Percy Harvin, Marshawn Lynch, and
Reggie White changed that football team.
Reggie White, they won 1 Super Bowl. And by the way, the next year, Reggie White was nowhere to be found and let Terrell Davis gash him on the ground. He got manhandled by the Broncos offensive line that game.
Okay.
So,
well,
I mean,
there was a lot of cut blocking going on. That was questionable. Now,
but okay, now to be fair, Reggie White's a little bit rare because Reggie White is like maybe a top 5, like non-quarterback game changer of all time. He's in the Lawrence Taylor range.
And I'll say this too. Now, somebody pointed out on the message board that the quarterback situation has proved to be a great place to go out and get a guy, and maybe Joey Aguilar will be that guy. Quarterback situation's a little bit different. I think that you put time into recruiting him from another school. You get to know him, and hopefully Tennessee has done that with Joey Aguilar. But there are Joe Burrow is the most obvious example. He just stepped in and was an elite, incredible player. Listen, I had a 3-minute interview with Joe Burrow at SEC Media Days the year before LSU won a national championship. I interviewed Ed Orgeron first, and I said, there is no way I can see that guy hoisting a national championship trophy. I went and interviewed Burrow. After 3 minutes, I said, now I believe they can. All you had to do is talk to that guy for 3 minutes, and you're like, whoa, he is another level of maturity. And it's like when Cindy Crawford in her prime walked in the room. You didn't have to say, she's kind of good looking. Maybe she's a supermodel. You're like, whoa, she's a supermodel. Joe Burrow was a supermodel of quarterbacks. That was easy. Joey Aguilar's not easy unless we learn something about him that we don't know, unless Tennessee takes him to SEC Media Days showing that he's an elite leader. Do you believe that's going to happen, Caleb? I don't.
No, but he's a veteran, and I think he could maybe I have more faith in him than you do, put it that way. Yes, he is a veteran in that way. And I still believe in when you talk about Joey Aguilar, I think Joey Aguilar with Josh Heupel's system is fine. I think Josh Heupel needs to make sure the skill players are up to stuff. Look, what I'm talking about with the way you build this team is where you build it and where you recruit and how you put it together matters. And there's another layer here, Dave, that we haven't even talked about. Chemistry. I mean, how many teams have you seen win Super Bowls, or not Super Bowls, championships because they didn't have the most talent, but they had played together for 2 or 3 years? I mean, you wrote a book on the 98 team. We both agree that's not one of the 3 most talented teams Philip Fulmer coached, but they were the closest team that Philip Fulmer ever coached.
Agreed. Now, I'll give Josh Heupel credit on this. I think he does bring people into the fold at a high level. And I think McCoy was a great example of that. And I think you'll continue to see that. I don't think you're going to see guys come in and be disgruntled. Now, part of that maybe is not good because was Lance Hurd promised he would play from the get when maybe he wasn't ready. So there's a yin and yang with that. Timothy Super Chat.
Heupel was JUCO before going to Oklahoma. Why not go after JUCO players in the portal and get high school recruits? I actually, wait, are you saying why not go? Okay, why not go after JUCO players in the portal and get high school recruits? He does. I think JUCO counts as kind of transfer guys you're recreating in the aggregate. But the best thing Heupel does is, again, find cast-offs and find guys that you think can be really good at your level after playing really well at a smaller level. I just want to point this off. Like, for instance, Jermon McCoy, smaller level, played at Oregon State. Josh Heupel went and got him. He's an All-American. Miles Kitselman, an Alabama cast-off. He's all SEC. I mean,
Dylan with a great point. Dylan says, because JUCO players are about as rare as finding Bigfoot riding a unicorn. You're right. And even more so than when I was really in the weeds and covering recruiting 5-10 years ago. And here's why. Everybody qualifies. When's the last time that you've heard of a guy not qualifying academically and falling short that was really highly coveted and had to go JUCO? I can't even remember. That used to be something that I covered extensively. And now most of the guys are midterm guys. I remember, was it Casey Clausen that came in midterm? And everybody was like, oh my goodness, he's a midterm guy. How unbelievable. Maybe it wasn't Clausen. We can go back and check. Now everybody's a midterm guy. The bottom line is high schools are the same as colleges. You don't have to even go to class in college. You're already getting paid. In high school, they want to make sure that you're academically eligible and good to go because it looks good on the football program at your particular high school. And those guys are recruiting as well, which you shouldn't do. So if you slip to JUCO, man, I used to say you went to JUCO for a reason. I'll go ahead and take it a step further. If you go to JUCO now, you're going to JUCO for a bad reason. You either didn't give any effort academically or you've got some sort of character issue. Now, this will lead us into this. Dylan said, did you need a translator for Coach O? Maybe I did. Let's go ahead.
What's up, guys?
Yep. Let's get to start of the day.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, don't do this to me. Don't do this. Sam says good JUCO guys used to be the ones that got kicked out of major colleges initially, like Alvin Kamara. Listen, Alvin Kamara is a 1 in a million example of a guy that had a perfect attitude, didn't play enough, got kicked out of Alabama, survived JUCO, was really good at Tennessee. He wasn't a star because he didn't get the ball enough, and now is a star in the NFL. Don't give me him. He's an absolute 1 in a million. Great shout out, but that doesn't happen most of the time. Caleb's stat of the day.
Also, Alvin Kamara was a rare talent because I'm not going to give you the attitude part. I mean, again, ask the guy in the elevator in Vegas if he has a good attitude.
No, he had a good attitude in terms of not playing. He's always smiled, and we would ask him, "Hey, are you disappointed you didn't touch the ball more?" And he never had that issue. Hey, listen, a lot of guys get some coin in their pocket and they act like jackwagon. But bottom line is, Jalen.
The best example, the most one in a million junior college example of getting kicked out going to junior college is Cam Newton, the greatest college football season in the history of individual college football seasons in 2010. But okay, stat of the day.
Brought to you by Newbert Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. Go, Caleb.
Since we're talking recruiting, 247 Sports Talent Composite rankings. Over the last 3 years, how big of a difference do you think Tennessee has been between their talent composite ranking, their average talent composite ranking, and their average final ranking?
I don't know. Say that again because I'm excited to hear this.
How big is the gap between Tennessee's average talent composite ranking and average ranked finish at the end of the season?
I'm going to say it's pretty much right on the money. I would say that their average finish is 5 spots better because I think they're good X's and O's and scheme coaches for the most part. I'm going to say it's 5 spots better than their. No, it wouldn't be. I'm going to say it's right on the money.
You were right the first time, but you were closer the first time. It's been 7 spots better. It's been 7 spots better on average.
So their finish at the end of the season has been 7 spots better on average than their recruiting ranking.
Yes. Their talent composite ranking, which includes recruiting, transfer portal guys, anybody you added.
Oh, okay. Because I was confused. So what is their talent composite ranking?
Their average talent composite ranking has been 17th over the past 3 years.
And they have finished
Their average finished has been 10th.
Okay.
That's massive overachieving, which means if they can get their talent composite ranking, Dave, to 11 or 10, national championships on the table.
I'm going to say slightly better than that, but I would say 7-8 in there, but fine. Nathaniel says, I feel like we're always hovering 10-ish. And listen, that's going to be good enough until it's not. And a lot of people are going to tell you that's good enough and everything's copacetic with the University of Tennessee. I'm here to tell you that if you want to win a championship, if you want to get to the national title game, if you want to advance in the playoff, Tennessee has to be better. And if you're okay with being a top 10 program, that's perfectly fine. Then you are in the catbird seat, boys and girls. You've got this all figured out. But if you want to hoist a national championship trophy or even an SEC trophy, you had better be a little bit better in recruiting, and you had better knock on the door of that top 5. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Coming up, Ed Orgeron. We've got fantastic video. It'll be What the H, brought to you by Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design, as Ed Orgeron gets mad at a civilian on the beach who says roll tide. What else do we have going on, Caleb? I feel like I've missed something.
Yes, you're missing one thing, and we'll talk about this too. We also have I'm going to tell you guys why Tennessee's on upset alert at Kentucky this year.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I missed that. Let's go ahead and do that right now. Upset alert at Kentucky. Hot or cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Do you want to drop the column in the message board as we go ahead and dive into this?
Let's take the commercial break and then we'll come back to it.
Okay, stay tuned. 2 minutes off the hook sports. I don't know why Caleb's doing that. He's just controlling the show. He's getting more like that. Stay tuned. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume 4 dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Where do you stand? Hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee. cityheatandair.com. On Off the Hook Sports.
Hot or cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. It's obvious that everyone in the message board disagrees with Caleb's take. Let's go to a couple of comments. And basically, this is about Kentucky. Hot or cold, let me ask you this, Caleb. Tennessee should be on upset alert against Kentucky. And then we'll go to some of the comments from the message board that disagree with you vehemently.
Yes, I'm hot. Tennessee should absolutely be on upset alert against Kentucky. And if you know anything about Josh Heupel and certain types of games, you will know why they should be on upset alert against Kentucky. And I know that might make some heads explode, but only Philip Fulmer was unblemished against Kentucky. Let's not forget this. Outside of him, every Tennessee coach has pretty much had a bad loss to Kentucky, save for Lane Kiffin, who only coached for a year, but Jeremy Pruitt had a bad loss in 2020. Butch Jones lost to them in 2017. Derek Dooley lost to them in 2011 and was shocked that people were mad that he lost to Kentucky. Remember that? Johnny Majors had multiple losses to Kentucky. Going back to the days of Robert Nealon, guys, Tennessee missed out on 3 Rose Bowl trips and 3 perfect seasons because they tied Kentucky at the end of all 3 of those seasons during the Nealon days.
I'm cold on all that reasoning and all that history. The most recent history is that Kentucky has just been Kentucky, which a lot of people refer to them as. Nathaniel says we're not losing to Kentucky. Sam says Kentucky may not win 3 games this year. Blind Squirrel Sports said, I think Caleb just wanted to rile y'all up with the Kentucky comment. Hot take, Caleb strikes again. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. If I agree with Caleb's take that this is a major factor in the Kentucky game this upcoming season. I'll play.
That's hot.
Yes. Thank you, Paris. If not, I'll tell him how cold that is. All right. So, Caleb, factor number 1, hot or cold, brought to you by City Heat and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com.
So this is based on the time game, the time slot windows that were revealed yesterday for many of the Tennessee games. And most of them, they're in a flex spot. That means either 3:30, 4:30, or 7:30, 8:30, but depending on how they're playing at the time. But Kentucky's locked in as a night game. It's either going to be 6 or 8 p.m. It's locked in as a night game. Josh Heupel's teams are bad at night. I'm just going to say it. They're bad at night. Dave, you ready for a quick stat?
Yes.
Tennessee last year was 7-6 against the spread. Not bad, right?
Agreed.
They were 3-6 in night games. And here's the crazy part. They lost their final. They were 0-6 in their final 6 games against the spread in night games last year.
Okay.
Meaning the only time they covered were when they played overrated teams like Kent State and NC State at night.
Okay. I'm cold on, in general, Tennessee should be on upset alert against Kentucky. But I'll give Caleb this on that point.
That's hot.
And it's hot or cold, brought to you by
And it's
City
because they
Heat and Air
practice in the
Conditioning,
morning.
cityheatandair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your man.
All right, so you can be a part of Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heat and Air Conditioning. Adam says we can't afford to drop a game against Mississippi State, Arkansas, Kentucky, or Vanderbilt. Morale would break and the team fan base would spiral.
That's hot.
I do agree with that, Caleb. Do you?
I mean, I agree, but I'm just saying it's upset alert. Now, again, I want to point out also the reason Tennessee's so bad at night. Dave will tell you they practice at 6 in the morning. They are up and they are practicing at 6 in the morning. So to practice, their body clock has them getting up at 5:30 probably, and they got to be playing these games at 8:30 at night. Man, they are in trouble. Can I get to Timothy's super chat real quick?
Yeah, I can pull that up. Yes.
Because Timothy's asking why even play the game. According to the talking head, we don't have a chance this year. Timothy, I never said Tennessee doesn't have a chance. I said Kentucky does have a chance. On upset alert.
Well, yeah, I mean, you still would call Tennessee to win this game.
I'm
right?
still predicting Tennessee to win this game. I'm just saying that this being a night game puts them on upset alert.
That's hot.
All right. Another factor, it's on the road. Josh Heupel's team struggle on the road.
They do struggle on the road.
That's hot.
They have, and this is because of so much of their offense is based on tempo and the quarterback doing things at the line of scrimmage. That's more difficult when you're on the road. And it's particularly more difficult when you're on the road at night. Guess what? The Columbia collapse, a night game on the road. The choke at the Swamp, a night game on the road. The Arkansas upset last year, a night game on the road. In all 3 cases, Tennessee faced a significantly inferior team, and in all 3 cases, they lost.
You bring up some good points. I mean, I will give you that. I still, as a whole, don't see Tennessee being on upset alert. And this is a lame reason because Kentucky's just Kentucky. But one more factor, throw it out there.
One more factor is the game is in late October. And in Lexington in late October, it's basically like cold Big Ten country at that point. And the cold weather could definitely be a factor for an offense that is designed the way Tennessee's does.
Well, it could be. If so, then you got a major problem because there's a good chance you're going to have to play in a cold weather venue in the college football playoff. So if that's a factor, then you need to look long and hard at the offense you're running. And that means you need to look long and hard at the coach that's heading up your program. So make it a poll question. Should Tennessee be on upset alert against the Wildcats? And there you go. Dylan with a good comment. We are to Kentucky what Florida is to us in 2023. They had us beat until Samson marched us down the field and scored in the 4th quarter. let me throw a factor out there. There is a mental hang-up with the Wildcats when it comes to beating Tennessee. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Do you agree, Caleb?
Yes, I do. I think there's a mental hang-up the same with Tennessee or Florida. And that's the one way I can steal man y'all's other side, because I'll tell you this.
That's hot.
Kentucky is the one exception to this Tennessee rule, believe it or not. And what I mean by that is Tennessee, in their 2 trips to Kentucky so far under Josh Heupel, in both instances, they played at Kentucky at night and they covered the spread. As a matter of fact, I think they were underdogs in both games and they won both times, 2021 and 2023. So Kentucky is the one game that this doesn't necessarily apply. But that doesn't mean that the rules of how Tennessee struggles at night and struggles on the road won't apply when they face Kentucky this year. And look, guys, I'm going to point this out. You part of this, Dave, you have to point out. I mean, I'll add another element to this. What's going to be the mentality of Tennessee when they face Kentucky? They have Alabama the week before. They still have Georgia earlier in the year. What if they've already lost to Georgia and Alabama and they're going to visit Kentucky on October 25th? Do you think they're going to be motivated because they're still kind of in the playoff race, or do you think they're going to be like, it's over, we're done?
Well, there are 2 different types of teams that can go to Lexington. One that's in the playoff hunt, and if that's the case, I'm not worried about Tennessee with an upset against Kentucky at all. If they're not, I mean, that's a different can of worms, and I think that's kind of hard to factor in there. Adam, nice enough to say, I'm with Dave. We can't be on upset alert against Kentucky. Surely we can lose any game, but the odds aren't any worse than Vandy or Arkansas. Would we have a way of pulling early point spreads?
Not for Kentucky.
Okay. I'm curious, how would you rank those 3 teams in terms of Tennessee would be the biggest favorite against? The Vanderbilt game's at home, the Arkansas game's at home.
Vanderbilt's number 1. They're going to be the biggest favorite against Vanderbilt. Great. I can just tell you guys that up front.
That's hot.
Arkansas will be their second biggest favorite game. They will be the second biggest favorite against Arkansas. Kentucky will be 3rd.
I go back to what I said in just a second ago. I think it totally depends on the mindset of the team headed on. I think Tennessee could be a 13-point favorite over Kentucky if they're playing for a college football playoff spot, and Kentucky's been Kentucky, and I don't think Kentucky's going to be particularly good this year. They could just win 4 or 5 games. And then if not, Tennessee might just be a 3-point favorite. Could you see it having that sort of bandwidth, so to speak, 10 points?
Yes, I could. Now, let's look at Kentucky's schedule before they face Tennessee. Now, before they face Tennessee, they face Georgia. They go to Georgia, and then they host Texas. They're losing both of those games, right? Like, just throw them out the window. They're losing to Georgia and Texas. Yes. However, before that, they start the year against Toledo, Ole Miss, Eastern Michigan, and at South Carolina. Now, theoretically, that should be 2-2 because they would lose to Ole Miss and South Carolina. So theoretically, they should be 2-4 going to face Tennessee. But here's the problem: they get Ole Miss at home the second week of the season. They beat Ole Miss 2 years ago. You and I both know, Dave, that no matter what Lane Kiffin does at that program, he has a really, really, really bad habit of dropping games he shouldn't drop in certain situations. Mm-hmm. And who's to say Kentucky won't be the game that he does that this year? If they beat Ole Miss, they're going to get to 3-0 after beating Toledo and Eastern Michigan. Then they're going to go to South Carolina. South Carolina has a lot of hype this year with Lenore Sellers. But could South Carolina be overlooking Kentucky since LSU's after them? Maybe. Could Kentucky pull an upset? Maybe. And what happens then all of a sudden if you're looking at a 4-0 Kentucky team going into October and they are riding high with a certain wave of momentum? I mean, vibes matter in these games, don't they?
Yeah, vibes certainly matter. Like I just said, I think it could be a difference in a 10-point spread depending on how the season plays out. I mean, what happens if Tennessee loses to Alabama, Georgia, Florida, which could happen, right?
Yep.
And who would they have left after those 3 teams?
Well, they won't lose to Florida because Florida's after Kentucky.
Okay, so they wouldn't. Okay,
but they lose to Alabama and Georgia.
So Alabama, Georgia. Let me pull up.
But I will say that it doesn't seem likely they'll have any other losses on the schedule going to Kentucky unless they drop one at Syracuse against Syracuse at the beginning of the year.
Okay, so just to remind everybody, because they've manhandled the schedule and what I was used to, Syracuse, they could lose that. I don't think they will. ETSU, they're going to win that football game. Georgia, they could certainly lose that. UAB, they're going to win that football game. I would say Mississippi State and Arkansas are potential losses. So let's say that Tennessee goes to Kroger Field in the fast checkout line and they've lost 3 games. Are they more motivated to beat Kentucky, or are they less motivated because they're out of the college football playoff? Remember, these guys are getting paid, so I'm not sure that they have the same sort of effort and let's win one for the Gipper that maybe some other teams in the past would have.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think they're not going to be as motivated looking at that makeup. It'll be very hard to keep things going at that point. I mean, Dave, how many teams have you covered where it gets very hard to practice as the season? Let's just because practice habits carry over to the field. It gets very hard to be motivated for practice when your season is going down the drain, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
you realize how many bad practices I covered Kentucky week?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah,
like dozens.
And let's not forget that loss to Kentucky in 2011. I mean, there's still people that believe that Tyler Bray and Derek Rogers just didn't want to go to a bowl game, so they didn't bother to play. I don't believe that. I don't think I don't think people just say, I don't want to go to a bowl, so I'm purposely going to throw this game. I don't think that happens in college football, really, unless you're gambling. But it's at the same. It did seem like Tennessee didn't want to play that game and really didn't care if they went bowling or not in that Kentucky game.
Yep. All right. Ed Orgeron yells at somebody who yells "Roll Tide" at him. This is going to be one of the funniest things, if not the funniest thing you see today. But it just, I love the fact that Ed Orgeron has crept up into our consciousness. I think the world is a better place when you've got, tell him about it, JoJo. You remember that commercial? That was fantastic. You want a Hummer? I want a Hummer. Everybody wants a Hummer. That was just, oh man, that was hard to believe how great that was. So Ed Orgeron yells at someone. It's hard to believe he was once a coach at the University of Tennessee. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Here we go. This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I like the way Timothy thinks. Then you dock their pay. Yeah. Kentucky goes up to Lexington, if Tennessee goes up to Lexington, and they play half-hearted because they don't have a college football playoff berth to play for, could you dock their pay?
I mean, Tennessee can't based on what I don't know, but like that's up to NIL. Like I think the NIL like markets will. This is what we've talked about for a while. The markets will fix themselves up. I think NIL might encourage people to play more, Dave, because I still maintain that there is still a level of this restaurant wants to pay you a bit of money to come to their, to come host an event one day. Those desires kind of, maybe tell me if I'm wrong on this. You know the Knoxville market better than I do. Those desires go away a little bit if Tennessee's struggling in a football season, don't they?
Yes. But they also, on an individual basis, I've said this before, if you play hard, the University of Tennessee, don't have to be a superstar, but let's say you get on the field some. You're Grant Frerking. Okay. All right.
He plays hard.
Yeah. If you play hard and you keep your nose clean, you're going to come out of the University of Tennessee football program making 100 G's.
Yeah, someone's going to give you a job doing something easy.
As a 23, 24-year-old, you're going to be good to go. There was one former player who ended up being an all-pro defensive end in the NFL. And he came back to Tennessee and back to Knoxville, ended up having a son that played for the University of Tennessee. And he worked for, it was Court South at the time. It's now National Fitness Center, who's a sponsor of ours. And clearly he didn't like that job. And it was just a matter of months. And he had a pharmaceutical sales job making well over 100 G's. You can probably guess who it is. Don't say who it is. But it was a player that he played hard. He kept his nose clean. He happened to be an all-SEC player. But, yeah, I mean, that's what you got to do. And but here's the thing. I'm telling that to a 21, 22-year-old kid. Do they have that type of perspective? Probably not, Caleb. They're like, I'm going to go to the NFL. I'm going to be an all-pro, and I really don't care what happens in the Commonwealth.
Yes, no, that's exactly how they are. You're totally right. And so, but at the same time, a little bit of extra money here or there would certainly help them play hard in a certain way. But I think you got to they need to be understanding that, and this is very short-sighted by a lot of them. People don't understand the opportunities financially that come just with winning and having success.
Just wearing that orange jersey.
Yes, no, you're right. And so, and I think that's a very underrated thing. That's why it always blows my mind in professional sports, and people hold out to try to maximize their value. I'm like, if you took a little less and you play for if you take a little less money and you play for the Cowboys, there's so many marketing opportunities that come with the Cowboys, aren't there? If the team has success.
Well, you'd rather be I could argue you'd rather be a contributor at Tennessee than a standout at Marshall.
I totally agree. Totally agree. The benefits are going to be so much greater if you're a contributor at Tennessee.
All right. Let's go ahead and get to What the H. And What the H is brought to you daily by Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Here we go. We've got Ed Orgeron, who set this up for us, Caleb, because this is the ultimate What the H.
Yeah, so old Ed Orgeron down in Florida called out somebody who trolled him by saying "Roll Tide." I kid you not. I'm going to play the video because old Coach O took offense to that, and he tried to teach somebody about respect. So here's Ed Orgeron.
By the way, if I'm Ed Orgeron, I'm hoping that Alabama beats the Jesus out of Ole Miss each and every year because they got rid of me. I don't understand that.
Ole Miss or LSU?
Or excuse me, LSU. Yeah.
Oh, Ole Miss does not. I mean, Ed Orgeron does not look back on getting fired by Ole Miss with LSU with any sort of bitterness. I'll play you a quick look.
Do you remember the interview that he had just come from the meeting with the athletic director? And this is before his last game coached, and he was jolly and good with it. And I'd been told before that interview on ESPN on the sidelines, that was it for him. A very good source. And he met with the athletic director like 7 a.m. before the game. He was fine with it because he walked away with $30 million and he was still an LSU fan.
He openly says that when he was told about his buyout, he said, "What time you want me to leave or what door you want me out of?" And so, all right. So here's what he decided to do while he was running in typical Ed Orgeron fashion, shirtless in Florida. So, because that's what
Ed Orgeron. Orgeron, did you know, actually is Latin for who needs a shirt?
I mean, he does seem to like to go shirtless a lot. I'm just saying. But this is Ed Orgeron. Here, we're going to play the clip real quick. It's 35 seconds.
Coach, sorry to bother you.
Right,
here we go, baby. Roll Tide.
All right, here we go. Not really.
I know.
What was that about?
Look, I respect you as a person. I was a big fan.
What was that about?
I respect you as a fan.
I wouldn't take those Tigers to you after I take a picture of you.
Understand.
Have a good day, man.
Hey.
Where you from?
I'm from Alabama.
What part?
Tuscaloosa, actually.
You
So you got to understand that ain't nothing
cool.
towards you.
No, ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But look, here, just respect.
Yes, sir.
I mean, what the fuck, man? Hey, if you're from LSU, you wouldn't go to Nick Saban and say go Tigers, would you?
I think some people would, but
You would.
Okay, he seriously almost got the hell beat out of him. That guy
was ready to beat that.
I'm not joking. I'm not joking. That guy almost got the hell beat out of him. He was that close. That ending in the phone dropping in the sand and him going, ah. I mean, that was close. What the H? Oh my gosh, that was fantastic. What the H, brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design.
What the H?
Wow, I never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Caleb, let me ask you this. Was Ed Orgeron justified in going back and saying something to him? Tennessee Junior says, that's great. Love-O, he's funny as hell. Yes, he is.
Okay, here's the only reason I will say he was justified. That guy wanted that. He wanted to go viral. He knew that Ed Orgeron might say something, right? Don't you think he was trying to get Ed Orgeron to say something? Like, but let me ask you. Okay, let's just throw out some other coaches. He brought up Nick Saban. If someone said "Go Tigers" to Nick Saban, wouldn't Nick Saban be like, "Oh, so you're an LSU fan? I'm real proud of you for being an LSU." He'd say it like so. He wouldn't say anything. Right. Steve Spurrier, if you said "Go Vols," he'd laugh, wouldn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'd go. Not back in the 90s. Wasn't Go Vols in. It was Go Gators. Gators did pretty well down there in the swamp. A couple of other comments on the message board. David says, Coach O is the GOAT. I don't care what anyone thinks. He's a class act. You all know he drinks 24 Monsters a day. This is true. It was actually Red Bulls. Maybe he's moved over to Monster. Sam says, I'd get my ass beat by Ed O just for the story. Maybe that wouldn't be so bad.
You want to get
was he justified in what he did? What the H? And it's brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
All right. So, Caleb, was he justified in? Was Ed Orgeron justified in going back and talking to this goofball?
No, that was ridiculous. But like, you expect it from Ed Orgeron. But one, he acts like LSU is the only place he coached at. You're right. He coached at Ole Miss. He coached at USC. He was an assistant at Tennessee for a hot minute. Coached with the Saints. It's like you're like, oh, how is Roll Tide disrespectful to him? He hasn't been at LSU in 4 years. Nick Saban hasn't been at Alabama in 3 years. So it's like, I think the funny thing is, I think Ed really did take it personally.
No, that's not. He's not putting on. He didn't know that anybody was recording. He did take that personally. There's no question. You think he may have. He did.
And also,
he almost beat his rear into the sand.
You think Coach O's on roids?
He's on test.
I don't know what test is.
Testosterone.
Oh, is he like that dude? Is he like at those places at the gym where like they give you those extra testosterone stuff when you're working out? You think he's taking those?
No, I mean anybody can get tests now. I mean, there's several providers in Knoxville. There's several providers in East Tennessee. I mean, I was tested for tests, and mine was through the roof. Mine was actually the highest of any 50-year-old they had ever tested.
Well,
True story. I asked the girl. I was like, "Have you ever?" I don't want to share. I'm just, want to tell you that it was the highest at this particular place that they had ever tested with 50.
Well, I bet at 63 Ed Orgeron
1150. I'll go ahead and tell you it was 1150.
Okay. I bet Ed Orgeron's laps even yours at 63. I think, yes, David Michael says it the best. Testosterone and cocaine. Can I just play the quick clip of Ed Orgeron telling the story of him getting fired?
Yeah, I'm good with that. By the way, might have also been a couple of pops in there. The alcohol persuasion, because I'm going to go ahead and tell you that's why Marlon Walls was not a Vol. Go ahead.
But does he pop before he runs in the heat? That seems a little dangerous.
I don't know. Does he take a swig before he goes on a recruiting visit? The answer is yes.
Okay. Here he is telling the story of why he got fired.
Good. I got to tell you, we had a meeting. Say, Coach, things are not going well. No, Ray Charles can see that, brother.
Ray Charles.
It gets better.
And they were good. And Scott Woodward is a friend of mine today. Really, really, a lot of respect for the way they handled me.
So what's next?
Well, I got to tell you this, though. Say, Coach, you got $17.1 million on your contract. We're going to give it to you. I said, what time you want me to leave and what door you want me out of, brother?
That is fantastic. You know who else said that to me on the air live? It was John Calipari talked about leaving the Nets.
Really?
We had him on live. I guess, I don't know why. Was it maybe he was coaching at Memphis? It was like a preview. You used to be able, you'd get all the opposing coaches on that Tennessee would play. And you don't get them anymore because they're too good. But I remember I asked him what happened with the Nets. He goes, well, we didn't win enough games, and I was told to leave, so they wrote me a $4 million check, and I left. And I was just so taken aback because I was really young. Do you remember what year that was? I mean, that would have been.
He was fired by the Nets in '99, and then I believe he spent a year with the Sixers before getting hired by Memphis after that. So he was an assistant for Larry Brown with the Sixers for a year.
So I would have been new to and I was in a fill-in role. So that would have been, 2001, 2002? When
he got hired at Memphis in 2000. And then his first year at Memphis was Jerry Green's last at Tennessee.
I remember I was filling in for Jimmy Himes. I was with John Wilkerson, and we both looked at each other like, well, that's a surprising answer. But it does kind of twist things a little bit because we all talk about wins and losses. But Caleb, is Ed Orgeron a winner at life?
Is he what Butch Jones wants to be?
Yeah. I mean, seriously, is he? Is he a winner at life? Because he wasn't a winner as a coach.
I mean, he was, though. He's a national champion.
Point.
I mean, Edo got his national championship. He's a bachelor in his 60s living in sunny Florida, just hanging out on the beach with his money. My only question is he going to continue winning at life? Or, I mean, I'm telling you, we talk about broke athletes. I'm not so sure there's not going to be a documentary about Ed Orgeron being broke in about 5 years. What do you think he does? What's Ed Orgeron's daily routine? He gets up in the morning, he goes for a run, then he goes to a bar and hangs out on the beach shirtless at a beach bar in Florida, and he finds some woman to pick up, and he's like, hey, I won a national championship. I'm Coach O. Want to go back to bed with me?
Sam has some insight into Coach O's daily routine. Ed O seems like the type of guy to drink until 4 a.m. and then wake up at 7 to run. Perhaps.
Okay, how about this? And Dave, you were out, so we weren't able to talk about this as much, but I'm sure you've seen some of it. What's grosser to imagine? Ed Orgeron's bachelor life or Bill Belichick's relationship with his new girlfriend?
Yeah, the latter.
That one?
Yeah, because he's all flabby and stuff.
So, well, yeah, true, but I feel like they're into this. At least Orgeron seems to actually be going for a little bit older woman. I think Orgeron goes for women in their 30s, maybe, and 40s.
Yeah, but if you had to watch intimate moments, if
I had to watch an intimate moment, Belichick and his girlfriend and Coach
if you're forced, I don't want to see Belichick at all. I don't want to see either, but I definitely don't want to see Belichick.
Well, I mean, like, never forget. After
Never forget. That. Okay, go ahead.
After this is one of the great ones right now, but after I can't find it. But after LSU, after Brian Kelly lost his first game with LSU, there was a picture that leaked of Ed Orgeron shirtless in bed with some random girl that he met. It seemed like they were trying to let people know, like Ed Orgeron was just letting everybody know he's living his best life as a national champion, while Brian Kelly's mad about losing to LSU. I'm going to freak Dave out because I'm just having too much fun with this. But Dave, you look at this. Look at Ed Orgeron.
Oh, no. What the H? My goodness.
Yeah.
What the H?
That is awful. Who?
She posted it. She posted it.
Yes, she did. He sure as heck didn't. And why is he okay with a selfie?
Because what's he got to worry about? He's 60-something and he's a bachelor and he ain't coaching anywhere.
I could have gone my entire life and definitely the rest of the day without seeing that picture.
I ruined Dave's eyes.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dylan brings up a good point. At least Coach O looks like he's having fun. Bill looks like that girl has him on a leash. Yeah, Bill looks miserable.
Yes. One also seems like he's got the energy to, keep things going when he wants to. Because I don't know if Bill does.
Yeah, I think probably before those intimate moments with Bill, there's probably like 4 or 5 pills that have to be taken.
Exactly. Where are those?
That's my wife. What the H?
Well, if that's true, Dave, your wife is hot enough to sleep with Ed Orgeron, a national championship winning football coach who coached a Heisman winner. Let's just say that out loud, Dave. Ed Orgeron won a national championship and coached a Heisman winner.
Sam says that's off the hook. Indeed, it is. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. The show is broadcasting live at 10 a.m. from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. It is, again, the fantastic Father's Day that you need to be a part of when it comes to Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln. Let me tell you about that, because Saturday morning is going to come around and everybody likes to kick tires on cars on a Saturday morning. Well, I bet Dad would look fantastic in a brand new Ford from Ted Russell Ford. And let me tell you about it here for just a second. Let's dive into this, because you're absolutely going to love the fact that you can go to Ted Russell Lincoln and get these kind of specials. And how about this? The Father's Day sale. Happy Father's Day to you at Ted Russell Ford. And you can celebrate Dad in style this Saturday, this weekend. Treat Dad to a luxury ride that he deserves at Ted Russell Ford. At Ted Russell Lincoln, where you can get that luxury ride at Ted Russell Ford. They've got a fantastic Father's Day sale. Absolutely the top models at Ted Russell Ford, your super dealer. Celebrate Father's Day in horsepower style. Don't miss your chance to save thousands and make this day unforgettable. Check out the amazing offers that you can find on all of our social media pages. They are going up here just momentarily. And if you want to celebrate with a little bit of pizzazz, a little bit of style, Lincoln style, you can do that as well. Again, 2 locations, Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike. Treat Dad to a luxury ride that he deserves at Ted Russell Lincoln. Enjoy incredible savings and make his day unforgettable. Man, luxury meets comfort. Discover your next new ride and celebrate the amazing day in our lives. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I'm sure there are a lot on our message board. Happy Father's Day to Caleb Calhoun, who is celebrating his second Father's Day now all of a sudden, with Quincy Calhoun, who is just over.
First one was a total blur.
The first birthday or the first year?
First Father's Day was a total blur. It was like 2 weeks after we brought him home from the hospital.
Okay, yeah, I understand that. All right, give me the next 20 years are going to be a total blur. All right, so give me one thing you learned in your first year of fatherdom.
Oh, one thing I learned in my first year of fatherdom. Honestly, that you forget the milestones because there's so many in the first year that like they gotta get off the bottle, they gotta be able to hold the bottle, they gotta learn to turn it over. It's like I've forgotten already. Like it's only been a year, and I'm like, wait, when did he learn to roll over on his own? I don't even remember now. When did he learn to lift his head up? When was I able to start holding him like straight up and as opposed to like holding his neck? And the thing I learned, I'm like, is that I've forgotten all of it, and it's only been a year.
Here's what I've learned over the past year being a father. And that is when they get to be 20 and 22, they're grown people and there's really no telling them what to do anymore. I don't know why it's that particular age, but it seemed like I had a little bit of leverage at 21 and 19. I have no leverage at 22 and 20.
Well, I'm sorry. This is horrible, but Dylan wins the chat of the day.
Happy Father's Day to all Coach O's girlfriends because God knows they don't have.
That's horrible, Dylan, but like.
Is Ed Orgeron the ultimate daddy on Father's Day? The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Don't forget to check them out on Father's Day. And don't forget, we're with you each and every weekday at 10 a.m. And also, if you just catch part of the show live, you can go pick it up on podcast form, audio, whatever you need on YouTube. We love it when you're on YouTube. But also, you can get it on Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker.